This episode of Made in America TV is brought to you by America's Inventor League and Home Talk USA. Home Talk is a proud member of the King's Broadcasting Network, which has been bringing you the best in home-based innovation since 1998.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being with us for this episode of Made in America.
Home Talk USA on the King Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Greg Owens, here with Rita Crompton. This is the Made in America Hour. Rita, good afternoon. Welcome.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for having me.
So there's a lot going on in trade and tariffs and all that these days, and I thought maybe we could have a quick conversation in this first segment and run down where we stand at this point.
Well, I appreciate it because I get inventors who are asking me on a daily basis, hey, what's going on out there? And so being able to give them an update is a big deal.
Well, I think it's kind of funny because you pick up the paper and you read all sorts of versions of what's going on. My personal opinion, I would just say we are in the disruption phase. Disruption after 30 to 40 years, depending on how you're keeping score, of some really bad trade deficits and bad trade deals. And you have to shake things up before you can fix them. It isn't something that you can unwind piece by piece. It would be like trying to fix the UN rule by rule. It would never work. So I believe what the president is trying to do, and I think he has a lot more support than you'd think on both sides of the aisle, is really shake it up with our friends and our foes, so that we can get things back on track. And let me just give you an example of something that's happened since we signed, the United States signed the USMCA Accords, what was it, 2-3 years ago? Part of the deal was that Mexico, I loved Mexico, I lived there for a while, loved the Mexicans, have nothing against Mexico, but part of the deal we struck with them is they were supposed to keep their steel exports in tons at approximately the same level that they were at that point in time. Okay, sounds fair. They're up 500%. And if somebody doesn't step in and start making noise and disrupting and challenging our friends, our neighbors, our trading partners on these things, then it's never going to change. And I think that's what's going on right now. But just sort of a rundown on what. Go ahead, Rita. I see.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree. And most consumers don't realize those nuances in trade. They go to the store, they buy a product, and they don't realize that, the different, tariffs and the trading practices and how our country has really taken it in the neck when it comes to trading with our supposedly our partners, our good friends and neighbors in the world. They don't realize it. They don't realize it. As long as they can pick that product off the shelf and take it home and use it, they don't really care and pay attention to the nuances.
Well, and pay attention to the nuances. How are they going to pay attention to it? Because the people who own the big corporations who have made billions and billions of dollars off of outsourcing products very cheap have thrown literally millions of Americans out of work, closed down factories. They own the media, and they're really fighting hard against this stuff. You pick up the Wall Street Journal these days, it's almost unreadable. And then I pick up other articles written by people who, they didn't know anything about the pandemic. 2 weeks later, they're writing articles about, infectious diseases and viruses and all this kind of stuff. It's the same thing with trade. I've talked to a couple of these reporters, and they don't have the slightest clue about international economics. It's actually kind of comical.
It is, and it's scary because they tell us what they want us to know, not what the truth is. And if they had been reporting on this over the last 30 years, a long time ago, we would have said, wait a minute, why are we getting all these paper products from Canada? Why are we getting all of this steel from Mexico? What about our people? And they don't know.
Well, and one of the first things that that they point out in a lot of these slanted articles, they're really editorialized things, is, oh my goodness, inflation, it's going to go through the moon. Well, what's happened to your property taxes? What's happened to your school taxes?
Yeah.
What's happened to your medical costs? A lot of these things, the town that we lived in used to have a manufacturing facility that produced $250 million a year of flatware. It was the largest flatware factory in the world. It employed 2,300 people who lived in the community, paid property taxes on high value homes. They paid sales tax at the restaurants and the grocery store where they went to. That thing's closed down. We're 67 people now. And when we bought the factory, we bought it in an arm's length transaction. We paid a little over $1 million for it. It was on the tax rolls at $28 million before we bought it. Think about the hit that little town of 2,000 people in Sherrill, New York took to their tax rolls. And guess what? The citizens that are still living there are footing that bill now. And this story repeats itself all across the United States, across the Rust Belt, these little communities that just got decimated, and they can no longer afford to fix their roads. They can't afford to do any sort of urban development. Down the East Coast, all the textile places that have gone under as a result of this. So it's time to start bringing some of that stuff back and realigning world trade in a way that makes sense for America.
Yes. And so tell us, what are you seeing? I mean, are people starting to now talk about this, and they got done doing the tisk and, oh, we're going to die, as opposed to let's rebuild?
Well, the courts have got involved, and the courts once again are being weaponized in a political way. It's basically anything that the president wants to do, they're going to fight it in court. And this International Trade Court, which is very obscure, I'd never even heard of it. This International Trade Court gets involved, and they tried to tell the president that he doesn't have the authority under this IEEPA ruling to do the tariffs. Well, thankfully, they appealed that, and it got put on stay, so he still does have the authority. But it could be that appeal fails, and he's going to have to go back to Congress. And what kind of a position does this put us in when we're trying to sit down and negotiate with our friends and our foes to get them to come to the table and give us a fairer deal? And it's really kind of tragic. It's kind of sad. It's being driven by the same people on Wall Street and the same people in power who are making billions of dollars off of shipping our jobs to China and other places. And it's really a tragedy. And hopefully there are enough, I believe they are, members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. This is not a typical issue in Washington. It really is an issue that is bipartisan and gets a lot of bipartisan support. So I'm hopeful that at the end of the day, they will allow the president to negotiate these deals, which he is doing, and we will end up passing it through Congress to make it more stable as the administrations change going forward.
Yeah, I mean, all we can do is in the meantime show that people are manufacturing in this country, that we do have the ability to bring products back here and make them at a price that the American consumer is willing to pay for them. I mean, I learned a long time ago that when I want something of higher quality that is going to last more than 6 months, I'd better have made in America on it.
Yeah, and one thing is, there are a lot of people on Wall Street that don't care where it's made. They don't care about American jobs. There are a lot of people in Washington that still are holding on to the globalist view, and they're staying in power and making money doing that. The vast majority of people on Main Street want to buy American-made products. And we've talked about it on the show before, how powerful that seal is that you can put on there, made in the USA. People love it. They want to buy it, and they're willing to pay a little bit more for it because they associate it with better quality and, like you said, things that are going to last.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't need something that's less expensive if I'm going to have to replace it every 6 months. I'd rather pay twice as much for it and have it last 5 years.
Absolutely. I just bought a refrigerator. It was actually assembled here in the USA, but a lot of foreign parts. And anybody who's bought an appliance lately knows that after a year or two, things start going wonky with it.
I
Um,
know.
Actually have one out in the shop that's one of those old refrigerators. It makes a lot of noise and it's got the big handle on there where you pull it. It
Yeah.
probably weighs 3,000 pounds. That thing's been going since the 1960s.
Yeah.
And one
Yeah.
of the appliance repair guys goes, never get rid of that because you
Uh,
can fix it and it'll keep going forever.
yep. Yep. You keep on fixing it, keeps on ticking. So I understand.
And there's no one who appreciates that more than my father-in-law, who's in his 80s, and he holds on to a lot of different things, and he cherishes those old things in his frugal ways. And I love it. I'm that thing ever goes on the fritz, I'm calling the guy. I'm getting it fixed. We're keeping it.
That's right. That's right. There's a reason why you go out and you look for old parts on something, so that you can fix the one that you've still got running in the garage.
All right. Well, we got to take a quick break here. We'll be right back. This is Home Talk USA, Made in America Hour here on the King Broadcasting Network. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Home Talk USA. This is the Made in America Hour on the King Broadcasting Network. My name is Greg Owens. I'm your host, and I'm here with Rita Crompton. We're going to get with Rita and her guest here in just a second. Welcome back, Rita. And I understand you have brought a couple people with us that are actually making things here in the United States.
It's wonderful when I talk to inventors. They've been doing this for a few years, and they make in California, they make in Colorado, they make in Wisconsin, Minnesota. There are inventors and companies right here in our own backyard, and they want to keep it here. And Ian Osborn has been a friend for years. Gosh, Ian, we've known each other for what, 15 years now?
Oh,
And
plus.
yeah, yep. So, and you have a very cool, very interesting background and a very cool product out there, and you are manufacturing here in the US. So tell our listeners a little bit about the Wild Ideas Light Company and what's the product that you are making here in the US?
So, Wild Ideas Light Company is a 22-year-old firm that designs and develops products exclusively with LED lighting embedded within those products. Our first product that went to market was a miniature puck light that is 1 inch round by 3/4 inch thick with a 1 inch bezel, and if it's pretty much flush within any product that it's buried into. We have them in over 150 hospitals nationwide. And our first hospital that was installed 19 years ago just lost half of their table. After 19 years of never being turned off, they just called and said, hey, we've got a portion of our table that we have some lights that are affected. Can you help us? Not a problem. Send them out some brand new modules, and they unplug them, plug them back in again, and their table's up and functioning again. Not bad for 19 years of never being turned off, which is
Yes,
pretty cool.
Congratulations. That is wonderful. So when you got started and you thought, oh, everybody does their LED lights in one of those other countries, you went there and you came back.
Yeah, I lasted just fraction over a year having product manufactured over in Shenzhen. And my problem was that after a container would come overseas, we would find that we were repairing almost half of our container of product with minor glitches, bad solder joints. Typically was always the case, bad solder joints. So we were actually putting out more of our labor costs back into fixing everything. And so my grandfather said, let's go old school and let's go to small communities. And we started going to smaller communities that are within 100 miles. And we started asking them if they'd be interested in doing contract manufacturing at some of these small mom and pop shops. And it's been running ever since then. So we manufacture our latest product we actually have. It's called Night Golf Systems. It is a device that supercharges glow-in-the-dark golf balls for night golf competitions, driving ranges. And it has just been a beautiful thing to actually watch come to fruition, where the golf ball, you throw them into the machine, and our biggest machine can can actually charge 3,000 golf balls in 90 seconds flat, all 3,000 of them, and they stay glowing for 14 hours. It is a phenomenal machine. I mean, it's just to be able, you open up the lid and you are blinded by the amount of golf balls that are basically effervescing, glowing so brightly that they look like they're moving inside the box. It's crazy process, but it's pretty neat.
So, what do you tell someone then when they say, oh, if it's got an LED light in it, you have to manufacture it in China?
No, we don't. And the cool thing is several of the manufacturers that are actually here in the United States, they have what they call the 51% rule. So they have certain parts of the LED manufactured overseas, and then the remaining 51% of the packaging and the actual die process of how the LED goes together gets made here. So even our products are being manufactured, our pieces and parts are mostly being manufactured in the United States as well. So I take pride in having that relationship with the LED manufacturer that we can actually do that.
So I don't blame you. You should, because we hear the default for the last, what, Greg? The default for the last 20 years is, oh, you got to manufacture in China. Well, you don't.
Yeah, for the last 20 years, it's really been a race to the bottom. And especially if you go through mainstream retail, if you're selling things at Walmart, they're just going to find the cheapest place in the world to make it. And that's probably not here in the United States. But like we were talking about in the last segment, and like you were talking about, Ian, quality is a completely different thing, right?
Oh, it is. We've had a couple products over the years that were client-based, where the client pays us to actually design and manufacture the product. And they came back and said, oh, well, we're not making enough money. And it's like, well, it's made in America. You have to make the choice. Do you want it made overseas and get a bigger price point? Or do you want to make a product that says made in America? And the client actually said, no, I want more money. So we actually made the product overseas. That lasted 8 months. And although he was making more money, he fell back into the same problem where almost 50% of the product that was coming over was not working properly, or it would fail within the first couple of days of use of what they were using. So they're like, okay, we have to go back to Make in America. It's a lesson learned. And it's hard because even today with all the tariffs, now I don't have to worry about any of those tariffs processes because I'm making everything here. There might be a couple pieces or parts electronic wise that might come from overseas, but I always make sure I have 3 to 5 different processes of components capable of doing the same thing that I can get. So in the event I can't get a part, at least I can still manufacture the product.
Yeah, that's part of the disruption that we were talking about, and it is unfortunate for a lot of people that you're not necessarily in this boat, but some people are manufacturing here in the United States with globally sourced parts, and they're going to have a challenge resourcing them. But I think one of the reasons that this whole process is being drug out is simply they're trying to give people a chance to locate things in other countries and have options.
Yeah.
So it's, we're proud of you for manufacturing here. That's wonderful. And the fact that, you learned the lesson, you brought it back, you teed it up, no pun intended with that golf thing you got there, but, you're working on, staying here, doing better. And kudos to you, Ian, and Wild Ideas Light Company.
It's been a long road process.
I'm sure it has. And, we'll have you on again because we're going to want to know how you do with that golf product.
I'm your host, Greg Owens. I'm here with Rita Crompton. This is the Made in America Hour. And Rita is going to join us and introduce Brandon, her guest for this segment. Rita, welcome back. Well, that was fun, that last segment, talking to somebody who's actually making things here in the United States. And you have Brandon with you, who is also making things here in the United States. Why don't you introduce Brandon and let him tell us a little bit about what he's up to?
Well, Brandon Kollar, I've known now for a few years, and he's actually going to be our guest speaker at the Inventors Roundtable this week. because he does more than just invent and talk about inventing and make his product in the garage. So, for those inventors that are, early on just getting started, there are ways to do it made in America style. And so, Brandon, thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. Tell our listeners what you invented.
So sure, Rita, thanks for having me on. Good to meet you, Greg. So my name is Brandon Kollar. I started an invention company when I was launching a product. And so I made an AR parts holding template, which helps people put together AR rifles. And I made it out of wood. I started as a foam prototype, which is what I was going to do long term. And then as you're testing samples and testing cases, things change and manipulate. So I always recommend people don't make 500 of their first item because they think that's what's right. They're going to find things that change and update as it gets reviews. And so I've continued to make my product, and I've sold over 3,000 of them in stores. I'm in multiple websites. And then recently my marketing exclusive contract was up. So I'm actually going after more licensing deals with my product being more open on the market now, and then always going to different trade shows and gun shows and shops trying to promote my product because that's the niche that it's in.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you're in 52 stores and you make these yourself.
Yep, every one of them, and family affair. And sometimes when you get rushed orders, you got to bring in help and run machines or buy a second machine. I actually had to buy a second machine during a large run because it was funny. I was working with an order with a customer, and I told them, hey, I need 6.5 weeks. They're like, great. And we came up with pricing, and then of course I get the order and the pricing was where they wanted it. And then I think I had 3 weeks, 6 days to deliver with a bunch of stipulations that if I didn't, I got dock fees and all these things. So I had to get a second machine, pull out all the stops, buy additional things to make the processing faster, call in help. And that's something it was a learning experience. It wasn't fun at the time, but I definitely learned from it and performing under pressure and all that great stuff.
So I got to ask you here. As your business grows, Brandon, and your orders increase, at what point do you say, okay, I can do 500 at a shot. I cannot do 5,000 at a shot. Do you just build a bigger garage or do you actually contract out?
So I've been meeting with different manufacturers and plastic injections, packaging companies to try to learn who my resources were in the area and then find out also what they were willing to do. Because early on, some places wouldn't want to deal with me unless I was doing 5,000 units. And so at the time, I wasn't ready for 5,000 widgets to even do pricing and molds and everything with them. So as I was getting bigger orders, I was also trying to learn from local resources to find out what their capability was in case I got a giant order, or as I was ordering a pallet of material. Like I had to get a pallet of wood from Canada one time and show up at my house. And so that was its own entertaining aspect of you can also build this as you're going. Like, yeah, you can get that huge order, you can get that 50,000 unit order, but as you're doing your small ones, you have to understand your economy of scale, what things are costing you, what the labor rates are, where you're doing it at. And so how I did it is I was actually learning as I went. So as I was doing the bigger orders, I had to find out what my local resources were that could help me on a large scale order, and then what that would cost, how much money I had to give up, how much money I had to deposit for them to make sure the processing was correct, and go from there.
So your plan then is to stay made in America.
Correct.
And you are able to then expand as you need to, whether it's in your community or in a different area, for what you need to do to fill those larger orders.
Correct. And then the only thing I'm currently moving towards on my product, because it's made out of Baltic birch, it's made out of wood, is if there's a way I could do like a molding of a harder plastic that would look like wood, and then I could print on top of it, because that would speed up my process tremendously. It would still look good. It would still have a weight. The tolerances would still be correct. But then you could whip them up in seconds when you're able to print on top of something versus sanding, cutting, rastering, and gluing. Because
So,
my price point's high right now. So I've had suggestions to get it lower. You have to find new materials to be able to do that.
I have to ask a question. I don't remember exactly what the process is called, but I have a friend who works in a plastic injection molding company. He works with Remington a lot, and they actually take their gun stocks and they dip them in this solution, and it gives them these really cool patterns, prints.
Like a hydro dipping.
That's probably what it's called. Yeah. Is that something that you've ever done?
Not with my current product, but it would look neat if you could do it correctly. And as long as you could print or then do the lasering afterwards, because you would need your base layer done. And then because I'm labeling and diagramming, that would have to be on top.
Cool. So when you went out and found these contract manufacturers, how difficult what were those conversations, and what were the issues that you had? What were the issues that they had, other than the MOQs, the minimum order quantity?
They completely varied. Some of them would do like a quick lunch and learn with me and do like a tour of the facility to kind of show them what they were doing in case they could get additional work. And then some of them would they would give me advice too, because I'd tell them where I was at. I was like, hey, young inventor, this is my second product. Here's what I'm trying to do. So some of them would be kind of like fortunate and help you and give you a block of their time. And then other people are like, hey man, time is money and you really got to be established. You got to have 5,000 units. You got to have something that's already like done unless we're doing a new master mold. I definitely got benefited that more people were willing to help than more people that just shut the door on me. And then, of course, they're helping you with little things like, what are you doing with packaging? What are you doing with printing? What are you doing with this? Have you thought about this aspect that sped me up to say, hey, I could actually, when I'm to this point, I can speed up my manufacturing process, or I'm going to change something. So that's a benefit too, because they will look at your product no matter what widget it is or what service, and they're going to apply it to something that's similar or different. But they're like, hey, if you shifted yours towards this manufacturing process, here's what you can get done per minute, per second, per hour. And that was way more appetizing because my current product takes over about 29 minutes to make per unit with the laser time, the hands-on time, and the hand crafting, versus what if I want to make this more of a gift price item to get it down to.
Well, I applaud the entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm just sitting here kind of chuckling to myself. That product development and improvement phase, how difficult would that be doing it halfway around the world in Mandarin Chinese? I don't know. I think it would be a little bit more challenging.
You know, I've had inventors say, oh, well, I'm going to go to China. It's like, no, you know, you don't go, if you've got a manufacturer there, okay, whatever. But, you know, you don't, if you want to go on a vacation, take a vacation, hire a tour guide. But you don't go over there for manufacturing because it's too hard to understand the nuances of the conversation. You know, so you walk the plant. It doesn't mean that they're going to make it right. You know, oh my God, they're just holy mackerel. You don't go there unless you're going on vacation with a tour guide.
Yeah, yeah, and Rita, I've had so many experiences playing around in this Made in America space where you talk to people like Brandon, you talk to people like Ian, and you just, it's inspiring, and you share information, and everybody's helping each other because we need a renaissance in American manufacturing, and it's people like Ian and Brandon that are going to help us bring it back.
Absolutely.
Well, we've run out of time again on this segment. We're going to have to take a break here. This is Home Talk USA on the King Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Greg Owens, here with Rita Crompton, and we will be right back.
Thank you so much for being with us. And what we're looking at, you know, is just how we get products that are made in America into the American consumers' hands. And we want to really be able to talk to Stephanie about the categories of ASD Market Week that are for Made in America products. Stephanie, how long has, you know, ASD Market Week been doing a Made in America segment? I mean, this economy really started shifting in about 2010.
Well, it's coming back stronger than ever. But I have to tell you, so ASD, you and I, we always laugh about what it represents. It started as an Army surplus show. And so
Really?
back in the day, 70 years ago, Fletcher hat, it was a whole different kind of scene than it is today. So for us, our team, we really want to encourage those that have American made product to come to the show because now more than ever, buyers are looking to incorporate it with their stores. They're proud about it, they want to try it out. And we only have a very small sample portion for the upcoming August show. So I think for March, you're going to see a transition, and we encourage it, we want it, and we're ready to support it every way that we can.
Well, ASD, Affordable Shopping Destination, and we were going to, kind of try to wiggle our way with that to say America stands determined.
Yeah.
But however you want to look at it, the idea is there is, a category there for the Made in America. And so, what are some of the products that you're seeing that are being shown that are made in America?
So you have a lot of like the beauty type of portion stuff where it's locally made, like the Naked Bee, and that's homegrown honey, right? That they're infusing and you can put it on your lips and stuff like that. We have private beauty called Blanca. They do their own portion within the US. And then we just have little trinkets here and they're very small, like I said. But we're starting to see that kind of elevate and more people express their interest and say, okay, how do we get to the show? Because now we feel more confident that we can compete and that our product will be accepted and that the price points are solid and that your buyers are going to want to take advantage of putting it in their stores.
Well, there's a lot of people listening that are, buyers, resellers for different products and different industries. How do you encourage them to come to ASD Market Week?
So ASD, we have the largest variety of product out of any other trade show that's within the US. So when I talk about we do things from tools to beauty, accessories, everyday household goods, you name it, we have it. So I would encourage them and just say again, disruption breeds opportunity. And right now, what we're seeing is that with the tariffs that you guys were talking about before and everything, people need solutions. And so if you have product readily available in the US that is new, exciting, benefits buyers, they're going to be interested.
Well, and America does consume, and we like to have a better product. There's a big difference between, what used to be made, that was all full of dyes, and now we're pushing to get rid of all the dyes in the food. So there'll be new food products. There's more eco-friendly products. And one of the things we look at, things that are, the packaging, is it eco-friendly? Is the distribution in the United States? And yes, I mean, it's so cool because, you've got Packwell Manufacturing in California. They make all their packaging in the United States. It's all made in America, and they do all the fulfillment. So when you deal with something that, is right here, you can actually, when you're paying attention, you can find all of it being made in America.
And there's a community aspect. I think that that's something that's really relevant in today's consumers. They want to make sure that whatever they're supporting with their hard-earned money, that it's going back to support the community that they live in. So I think it's just getting more acceptable of, okay, I'll spend a couple more dollars on this. The quality is good, and it's going to go back and it's going to make sure that the people that I love that are in this space are going to benefit in some way. So it's a great trend. I love seeing it. I think it's 2026 and 2027. It's just going to continue.
Well, that quality, so much of it, over the last few years has been price. I want a better price. I want a better price. And then we spent a few years with really bad quality. It was like everything was manufactured to be obsolete. And now we're swinging back. The pendulum is swinging back the other way. We want products that are going to last. We want them to do what they're supposed to do. We want the sizes to be sized right. Yeah. If you say it's coming from China, okay, pick 2 sizes bigger, because now the reality check is, everybody's little over there. And, it's been interesting. It's been interesting and an interesting journey to see things starting to shift.
It is, but again, it's I think it's been needed. And wow, what a great for if you're an entrepreneur and you've got ideas and you can execute, and it doesn't have to be fully 100% there. Just get it in a good space that you can communicate and show it in person. And I promise you, you're going to just be able to see so many doors open because at this point, people are willing to take a better look at it.
I agree with you. And, ASD is one of the interesting shows that you can actually sell to an individual. So it's a business to business show, but consumers can come in and they can buy one on, if they say, oh, this one's really, I want this one in my, my kitchen. I want this one in, my bedroom. But I'm not going to buy 20.
Yeah, business to business is what we're all about. Order writing. And again, they come with that intent. And we've got a very inclusive community. So there's a lot of mom and pop stores that are from all over the US and they're just looking for cool stuff to put on those shelves. And it's pretty cool.
So we do enjoy being there, and you guys are wonderful to us, and we see everything that you are doing then for all of the exhibitors. It really is, it's like going home, really, for everybody. They've been there before, they've been there for years. Everybody is very interactive.
Oh, we hug, we say hello, and where have you been? Or welcome to the crew. We love new people, and we certainly love reunions.